Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an Awards Watch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at Awards Watch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
Lady Gaga taught us about bad romance. Tony Scott taught us about true romance, and that's the film we're talking about today. So glad we got to this one. I think this is sort of a turning point in the career of Tony Scott. Arguably his second most important film in the quote-unquote canon. Is that accurate, you think?
I think it's definitely a big one because of who he's working with here. I mean, you're talking about maybe two of the quintessential names.
Quintessential
names of the next 20 years or of this era, and Tony Scott and Tarantino coming together right before Pulp Fiction. Like it's pretty big. It's pretty big, Jay. Pretty big.
I mean, it's got a huge home video audience. I really think this is one that, you can judge a movie's success by the number of private poster commissions are opened up on Facebook in the various groups that I am in, and true romance is a pretty common one. So it's definitely sustained.
It is that. I mean, it does have because it's Tarantino.
It was a flop.
It was it made back essentially its money, when it's all said and done.
It was a flop.
But it's a flop. Yeah. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe there's some reasons why.
We'll get to it for sure.
But Jay, for a big movie like this, for true romance, which I mean, we're close to halfway done with this series. It's crazy. We had to bring in a big guest. We had to bring in a friend because we're friends, buddy. But we always like to bring in great guests. And this is a guy we podcast with for a long time. You've known him for a long time.
Yeah,
he is he's the head podcaster and founder of the Two Peas in a Podcast, and he's our great friend, Mr. Gerald Morris, and he's joining us for the first time, I think, on a podcast. He didn't do the old show because he was too good for us. And
I've been on his podcast.
No, wait a minute.
Well, that would imply that we didn't invite him.
You didn't invite him.
We were actually two gibbers. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, right. He didn't do the old show. We've done many collabs together. I've been on his show.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been on his show a couple times. You've been on his show.
I was a presenter on the Golden Peas award show.
Oh, you were.
You were. What did you present? You did best male, right?
Yes, I did best actor.
Wow, that's
which I think went
presented an award to
RDJ. I think
it's
pretty.
Oh no, Cillian Murphy. That's right.
Pretty messed up that I didn't get an invite. I thought Gerald and I were really good friends.
They keep getting lost in the mail. Right?
No, I'm telling you, they're getting lost in the mail.
I hate it when a DM gets lost in the mail.
I just it's the worst. I mean, like sitting by the mailbox, like my dad's gonna take me to the park or something, and I guess he's not showing up today, Junior.
Gerald's my guy.
Gerald's a great guy.
I spent a lot of time in North Carolina. He's a North Cackalack man.
That's it.
And he's the best.
Well, dudes, thanks for having me. I mean, it's ironic we're doing True Romance because I love both you guys, and I was ecstatic to get the invite to be here. And as we will get into as we discuss this movie, it's one of my personal favorites, especially if you're talking like in the kind of action pop art realm, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you define this movie? It's kind of It's kind
of
no wonder it didn't do well at the box office. It's kind of hard to describe what the hell this thing is it's just it's a vibes movie, I think, really, which is perfect for Tony Scott because he's like the ultimate. We call him the tone setter around here. He's the tone setter. Like he's a master of creating a great tone in the environment throughout his films. And
I agree,
Gerald. We know a lot about you, buddy. The listeners, they don't, but that's okay. You're gonna learn a lot about Gerald probably today. They might. I don't know. But I got to ask you some questions, buddy. Some questions that I have been on my mind since we knew we locked you down for this episode, and that is we got to know your relationship with Tony Scott, what you love about him, what maybe you don't like about him, and we got to know your relationship with True Romance. So we'll save that when we start talking about the film. But the ultimate question, and this is the question of the series that we're asking everybody is, push come to shove, which filmography are you picking? Are you picking the tone setter, Tony Scott? Or are you picking his brother, the Riddler, Ridley Scott? You got to pick one.
To start out, I'll say Tony Scott.
Tony
Scott for me. I like his.
No one has picked Ridley so far.
Yeah, that's actually incredible, and I don't think anybody has picked Ridley yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love Ridley, and especially a handful of his movies are some of the greatest of all time. But I just like the more intimate feel with Tony's films. Like, I feel like no matter the scale, and we're going to be talking about True Romance, so it's kind of weird to say that's a grounded movie, but I mean, it does feel more like attainable to the everyday person.
It's like a
Tony Scott's films
movie.
Yeah. Ridley Scott's much more of an epic grand scale. I can never really see myself in Ridley Scott movies, but I can kind of see myself in Tony's movies. So
really, I
love them both.
I could see you in Robin Hood.
Maybe. Yeah, sure. I'll take it.
Gerald's got
I think that's a compliment.
Napoleon energy.
Yeah, you got Napoleon energy, some Kingdom of Heaven, like, you know.
Sure.
Why not? Yeah.
I actually just saw Napoleon for the first time like last week.
What'd you think?
I still haven't seen it.
Not great. I mean, it was, you know, it had moments. It was weird that it was trying to be slapsticky, but it was also like this historical biopic. I don't know. It was strange tonally, but
so it should have won all the Golden Peas, is what you're saying?
No, it didn't even get nominated for any.
Wow. So you're saying it got nominated for more Oscars than it did Golden Pea?
It did, yeah. Isn't that
Golden
weird?
Peas are more selective.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess they're just handing out Oscars these days. Everything.
But hey, Vanessa Kirby's in it, isn't it? She was awesome in it. I love her. So
was she awesome in that?
I thought so. I really liked her. Yeah. I thought her performance in that movie was the only one that was like consistent. Like she was the same portrayal throughout the movie. That's what kind of bothered me about Joaquin's performances. It was all over the place.
See, I kind of liked that Joaquin was all over the place. I kind of like that. I just thought that they kind of undersold her, and she didn't have enough to do. It's no hate towards Kirby. I think she's a really good actress. Very important person. But Jay knows what I'm talking about. Very important person. You know what I mean, right, Gerald?
Important.
Like very important.
For sure. Yeah.
But no, I just don't think that was the vehicle for her.
I mean, it wasn't a great movie all around.
No.
So I agree with you. But I mean, of the performances in the film, I probably liked hers the best.
Jay, you gonna put on Napoleon this week?
I'm gonna watch it at some point. I actually can't believe I haven't watched it yet because I am I'm a real sucker for an ambitious mess.
You're also like
that's what it is.
You're kind of an apologist too for late breaking Ridley, too.
Late Ridley, I'm mostly an apologist for. That is true.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
I can't believe it's a sweep so far.
It's a sweep. And this is kind of. I want somebody to come on here and defend Ridley. I mean, I don't think it's not. But I understand what you're saying, Gerald, because it's kind of what Jay and I have said about picking Tony and why I think everybody is coming on a Tony Scott series. Is that the consistency, and there's just something, I guess, not as prestigious or as polished with Tony's work as, I mean, they're great films. I'm not trying to undermine Tony at all, but there just seems to be something that Ridley's films, they feel so grand that they have so much pomp and circumstance now behind them rather than like, it's just kind of simple movies that are elevated by expert craft and a little bit more precision, much like a movie like True Romance, and everything. But what do you love about Tony Scott in particular, Gerald?
Well, I have a really cool anecdotal story about him specifically. And
all right, everybody just sit back.
Life. And I told Jay I was going to mention this on the show. Now that's the good news. The bad news is I'm battling with what's this 33 or 34 years of memory. So I'm going to try to remember to the best of my recollection. But this movie came out in 93. This was probably in 92 or 93. I was in high school. And Tony Scott came to my hometown and came to my high school to film a Sprite commercial. And he was the director of the commercial.
So rad.
They announced it a few months in advance that it was going to be happening. And you can actually find the commercial on YouTube, but it's horrible quality. Jay, you'll know this. Ryan, you may know this, but Muggsy Bogues, the NBA star that played for the Charlotte Hornets in the 90s.
I know Muggsy.
He was the star of the commercial. It was like a David and Goliath type thing.
Oh, I love that. That's actually ingenious because Muggsy Bogues was so small. Oh my God, that's
great. Dude, yeah. So that's what the premise of the commercial was. They announced it. They said, they're going to give students first dibs to be extras in the commercial and sit in the bleachers and just, act like you're cheering on for the game that's happening or whatever. So me and my girlfriend at the time, her name was Kim, we said, yeah, we got chosen to be in there. I purposefully wore this bright yellow polo shirt so I could stand out.
Because you thought you'd be one of the lemon, or you'd be the lemon and someone would be the lime.
Who else is going to wear a bright yellow polo in 11th grade?
They're going to put them in. They're going to put you in. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So to this day, I feel like there's this bright yellow kind of blurred image in the bleachers that I'm pretty sure is me. So you can't make out my face. But dude, he was such a down-to-earth guy. I mean, it was only a few hours that we were in there. And I got to meet Muggsy Bogues, which was really cool. He's kind of a hometown hero at that time. And Tony Scott, I met him very, very briefly for like a minute. And some other kids and friends of mine were there and stuff. And I remember him saying, and I don't know the exact quote, but I remember somebody asking him something about, what he was doing or what he had done. And of course, everybody knew Top Gun, but aside from that, it wasn't a huge, not everybody was like, oh, Tony Scott, marquee name in 1992,
Yeah.
But I remember him saying that he had just done a movie with Brad Pitt and Christian Slater, and he mentioned those names. And I think Interview with the Vampire may have been, was that after this?
It was, it was a couple years. Yeah, it was after this. I think it's the next year, like 94. Yeah.
So anyway, I remember him saying those names, Brad Pitt, Christian Slater. And it's just so cool to have been a part of that. And my acting career never took off. I never did anything else. But that was my 60-second meeting with Tony Scott, and he directed me in a commercial. So,
wow.
Now we got to.
Just as you were talking, I watched the commercial.
Are you serious?
You found it?
Height is nothing. Thirst is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to make
so
great.
You found it, right?
Yeah, I did.
They used to make great commercials, man. I don't make good commercials anymore. Sprite.
Same thing with like music videos too. They used to be done by like A-list directors.
Well, like
they were like mini movies.
Well, like music videos used to actually be on like television, and you'd be like, they used to have like a channel.
Well, they
called
used to be a big
MTV.
Deal. Yeah.
That's what MTV used to stand for, rather than like.
No, but the thing was, music videos used to be like a massive. You were a music video director. You could make a name for yourself.
No, I know. No, for sure. It also was like music videos was like a cultural event. Like we would go home from school. I remember, like, at least in my, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, getting home from school, getting a snack, putting on TRL on MTV. That was a thing. Watching countdowns, top 10, whatever, at the end of the week. You know what I mean? Seeing what you knew about new bands' albums through their music videos, not from press releases or, social media posts. Like that was the way to do it. And at least back then. And so, yeah, I miss a good music video because also too, like they distinctively had style and you could tell that someone had a vision. And nowadays, like, the best ones are still done by mostly directors that are taking time away from their film projects to go and do them. Like PTA is doing Heim videos, and Spike Jonze, does a couple here and there, and Fincher's not really doing that much anymore. But still, it's I mean, Jay, is there any music video director coming up still nowadays? I don't think so. I don't think there is.
I think the new director of the Beverly Hills Cop movie is a music video guy.
Oh, okay.
So that's our next auteur. That's what you're saying.
Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F.
I mean, look at Fincher. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
Michael Bay. I mean, Michael Bay did the, I would do anything for love video, right? I mean, Michael Bay was a music video.
That's right. Guy. Yeah, that's right.
Tony was. I mean, it's. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Aside from that cool little story of meeting him or whatever, I mean, Tony Scott as a film lover for me, like Revenge in 1990 was one of the movies that I saw when I was way too young. I saw that I was probably
maybe his most R-rated movie.
Salacious.
Yeah. And I saw that when I was like 14. So, and I love that. I love Costner. I still do, but I loved him in the 90s. JFK is one of my faves. I mean, I was a big Costner fan.
You ready for Horizon?
You know what? I'm gonna give it a go. I hate the length and the kind of like, was it a 3-parter or a 4-parter?
It's 4 parts.
He's trying to do 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna give it a go. I love a good Western. So
are you saying like the length of his movies, of the movie?
Yeah, aren't they like super long? And there's
Gerald, are you one of these like people that drags on 3-hour movies and comes on this podcast and gets angry about 3-hour movies?
I mean, Jay knows this about me because in fact, I think both of you did this, right? Somebody came on and did the 3+ hours with me, and then somebody else did the 90-minute.
I think I did the
shorty. I did the
long one. Yeah. I did the long one. Yeah.
So I'm no problem. I love Babylon. I love Killers of the Flower Moon. I love, I'm fine. Oppenheimer. I'm fine, But if you ask me right now, you can see this movie. We'll use Tony Scott as an example. You can see this Tony Scott movie, and it's going to be 90 minutes, or you can see a Tony Scott movie that's going to be 3 hours. I'm going to always pick the 90-minute, especially if I don't know what I'm getting into.
Well,
I'm okay with the length if it serves its purpose and it's just not gratuitous or whatever.
Well, they did that.
This bad boy's 2 hours. This is
yeah. I mean, like they did that study recently where like the audience, like they interviewed like 200 people or whatever in a poll, and they were like, I think it was like 92 minutes was the perfect runtime for people, which is funny because then like some of the greatest movies of all time, they're just 2 hours long, wouldn't exist. Like I was even thinking, I'm like, Godfather's 2.5 hours long. Like you wouldn't be able to see The Godfather. You wouldn't be able to see Casablanca. You wouldn't be able to see. The
troubling thing is, people now just watch TikTok and YouTube videos.
Yeah, but it's also
the cultural shift.
But it's also contradictory because it's like Barbie was 2 hours long. Oppie was 3 hours long. So it's like you guys, a Marvel movie is always 2 hours.
Avengers just was almost 3 hours away.
Yeah, it was 3 hours. Yeah, I think
the last Marvel movie that was under 2 hours was maybe Captain Marvel, was like 150 something. But
I feel like Ant-Man and the Wasp maybe was pretty short.
But
I don't know.
I mean, I'm a Titanic. I'm a Titaniac. I mean,
you're a Titaniac.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I like. I like Big Jim. Well, no, the thing about Costner is interesting is I started doing the rewatches because he's only got 3 films leading up to Horizon that he's directed. And Dances with Wolves, obviously 3 hours long. The Postman, 3 hours long. And Horizon's going to be 3 hours. And I was like, what's the shortest film? And it's Open Range, and it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's his best film by far. Like there's have you guys seen Open Range?
It's been a long time.
I
saw it initially.
Him and Duvall, and they're like free grazers, and they go in this town. And they have to save like Diego Luna gets like taken in by Michael Gambon, who's like the bad sheriff, and they got to like save him. And it's like basically like the outsiders versus the corrupt people on the inside. And Costner falls in love with Annette Bening, who's like the town doctor's sister. Yeah, it sounds like weird on paper, but actually it's really damn good. It's good. Yeah, it's really and Duvall,
a lot of very good performers.
Yeah, it's like it's really a showcase more for Duvall than it is Costner in that film. So highly recommend it. Not that we're doing recommendations at the beginning of the episode, but we just brought it back around. But I love Costner, and Revenge. Watching that one, I bet that's like a HBO Showtime late at night. You stumble upon it right there, Gerald.
I just saw it way too young. I mean, it's funny that I'm bringing that up because my son's coming on this live stream for the Cure with me next week. It's like a cancer fundraiser that we do. And the topic that he picked, which I think is hilarious, is movies that he's seen that he shouldn't have seen yet.
So it's your fault. So he's basically calling you out on the damn show. That's great.
He's almost 11, so I'm going to be parent of the year of the whole segment. But,
what do you think's going to be on that? What do you think is going to be there?
I mean, I know some stuff that I've shown him that I probably shouldn't have. He's seen Jaws. He saw the first Friday the 13th.
How old?
How old was he?
11. He's 11.
Oh, that's not that bad. I watched. Jay wasn't allowed to watch stuff.
I was very sheltered.
Yeah.
As a movie,
and my parents were like, as long as like he understands what a movie is.
Yeah.
Let him watch it. Let the kid watch.
I think Jaws
he actually
is
just saw
okay.
I think Jaws is pretty okay.
The reason he picked this topic is we actually just watched Starship Troopers. And that was what made him. That was what made him think, because he's like, I don't know. I think if you're supposed to let me watch this. Like,
how old is your son?
Maybe not. 11.
He's 11, and you made him watch that? That's just no.
I didn't make him. He wanted to, and I'm like, yeah, it's not that bad. It's just giant bugs or whatever.
You guys watch Total Recall too?
No, we didn't do that one yet. No,
should do that one. That's a good one.
Starship Troopers might make his list. But anyway, Revenge for me was one of those movies where I was like watching it at the time, going, I probably shouldn't be seeing this.
That's a movie I really stick up for. I'm a revenge.
Yeah, he's a revenge head. Yeah. And then he's made just like some of the most then watchable films, right, Gerald? And like when we were growing up or becoming more serious with film and stuff. But yeah, this is the more I'm thinking about it, Jay, to go back to your question, I think this is kind of big because maybe it's not. We talk about always like actors intersecting right before they're about to make it big or they have made it big or whatever. This is like, I know that Tony Scott has already done Top Gun, but like Gerald kind of says, it's like people mostly know that as a Tom Cruise vehicle probably and he still hasn't made like a giant hit outside of that. And True Romance is definitely not that. But Tony Scott takes a next step over the next couple of weeks that we'll talk about that makes him even a bigger commercial director. And Tarantino's about to take that big giant step as well, because the next year Pulp Fiction's about to come out. It's going to win the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It's going to be the movie that everybody's obsessed about. So this is kind of the appetizer before their meal of the career.
But this is also fully kind of an auteurist endeavor. Whether you want to split the auteurs in half and say it's Tarantino and Tony Scott, this is, to me, a more visionary film than almost everything he's made before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, like, both of them then from here on out dip into their sensibilities and styles very hard after this. You know what I mean? Like, this is like,
yeah, I mean, this is in my opinion the only Tarantino script that feels like it was made by somebody else.
Oh, well, interesting.
It's interesting you say that. This has a Tarantino feel to it for me.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I think this.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some.
I mean, it's not Pulp Fiction, obviously, but or Reservoir Dogs. But if you didn't tell me and you just said, "Oh, this is Tarantino's True Romance," and I didn't have any prior knowledge of the background, I wouldn't go, this doesn't look like a Tarantino film. I think it does kind of carry that quality with it. And of course, a lot of that's coming from the screenplay anyway, and the dialogue, which Tarantino is kind of known for. And there's some scenes in this movie that really shine through the dialogue and through the interaction with a lot of these characters. But I also see the Tony Scott kind of stamp on it, but I agree with Jay that this is a very different movie in his filmography that kind of puts that niche in his timeline where things are a little bit different going forward for him. And what I love about True Romance from Tony Scott's perspective is that this is a movie that's multi-layered. It's not just an action movie. It's also a pretty sweet love story, honestly.
Yeah.
It's got some, kind of creepy natural born killers type vibes to it. But it's got that elaborate shootout at the end of the movie, that standoff. There's a lot of different things that kind of come into play with True Romance that were, and I hate to put it this way, but the Tony Scott movies prior to this were kind of like one note. Like you could kind of easily put them into a genre stranglehold if you needed to, but you can't really do that with this movie. And I think, aside from the screenplay that Tarantino wrote here, I think Tony Scott's got a lot of credit to take for that too, and kind of making it this very multi-layered experience that you feel a lot of different things throughout this movie. You laugh your ass off. You know, you're enthralled by the action intensity at times. Like I said, it's very sweet at different moments, and you really pull for this Bonnie and Clyde type relationship that they have going. So I think it's really cool that he kind of didn't just do an action movie, which he's obviously phenomenal at, but he added in the layers with the love story and everything else. I think it's great, and that's why it's one of my favorites. It might actually be, as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, like, I have a giant soft spot for Man on Fire with Denzel.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it might be my favorite Tony Scott movie.
Whoa. All right. J-Dog, True Romance, what you think?
Yeah, True Romance. I mean, we got to get into the background, right? We got to.
Yeah.
I don't read these books for nothing. So what's
while you're talking, Jay, I'm going to grab a beer while you're talking. But
yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah, getting in the mood. Jay.
Yeah.
Your research. What you find?
Yeah, True Romance, kind of the background on this movie. So Tarantino was a regular visitor on the set of The Last Boy Scout. He was working on a rewrite for kind of this like Rutger Hauer B movie for New Line Cinema, and he just, you know, would show up on the set of The Last Boy Scout, and he was asking Tony Scott every question in the world. He's like, "Why did you shoot it this way? What was your thinking on telling the story this way?" And Tony Scott was just really into it. He totally engaged with Tarantino's relentless questioning, and they became buddies. And eventually Tarantino was like, "Hey, I've got these 2 scripts I'd love for you to read." And so he shows him the scripts for Reservoir Dogs and True Romance. And right after he reads them, Tony Scott is like, "I would like to make both of these movies, please." And Tarantino says, "Look, I'm already kind of committed to making Reservoir Dogs myself, but totally go ahead with True Romance. You can absolutely have that one." And so Tony just kind of takes it and runs with it. He still says to this day that he thinks that is the best script he's ever worked with, which is pretty cool. And that's easy to say given that it's Tarantino, but
yeah. No other screenwriter that he's worked with, I believe, has won an Oscar, but yeah, or been as revered of a filmmaker as
certainly
that's definitely true.
Yeah. But then they obviously, you know, from then it's, you know, starting to cast the movie and all that stuff. And Tarantino has a different vision of True Romance than Tony Scott does. He's thinking the Clarence character is kind of this weathered guy. He's thinking Robert Carradine was who he kind of wrote that role for, which obviously he's a big Carradine guy in general, given the Kill Bill films and stuff like that. But Tony Scott's like, no, it's got to be a young guy. I think this thing needs to be really energetic and crazy. And Christian Slater was sort of this hot commodity at the time, coming off of Heathers and a few other things. And he gets cast, and he can't really get a hold of the role. And what does Tony Scott make him watch as inspiration? Taxi Driver, which I think is an interesting thing to talk about when you talk about this movie, because it is one of these films that, and Taxi Driver has this as well, and Paul Schrader, I think in general, has this, who wrote the screenplay for Taxi Driver. It's like this really dark sense of humor in these almost psychotic characters to a certain extent. And I think that's captured very well by Slater in this movie. And then it moves on to the casting of Alabama, and Tony Scott wanted Drew Barrymore, actually. And Drew Barrymore was unavailable. You know who Tarantino envisioned when he was writing the script, which I thought this was crazy. He thought Joan Cusack as he was writing the script, which I don't know if that works at all, but that's who he had in mind. And then you keep going down the line. Tony Scott was good friends with Gary Oldman, And this is one of the funniest anecdotes of the reading. Was they were just having a conversation about the film, and Gary Oldman asked him, like, explain to me what this character is. And Tony Scott said verbatim, Drexel's a pimp who thinks he's black. And then Gary Oldman was like, okay, sounds good. Thank you. I will play that character, which is
Yeah.
just crazy. I mean, it's not inaccurate, but that is just a funny way to sell somebody on a roll. And then, while this movie is being cast and produced, Reservoir Dogs comes out and it's such a massive hit that all these other actors want to come in. Brad Pitt was like begging to be in the film. Obviously, he had been in Ridley's movie Thelma and Louise, and had a few kind of bombs since then. But they cast him in this, and I think that was really good for him. Val Kilmer had really been looking forward to working with Tony again after Top Gun. And originally his Elvis character was a really visible central figure in the movie. And obviously, if you've seen the film, Elvis is this faceless character in this film. He's like this heavenly, motivational character whose face you never actually see. Yeah. But Val Kilmer was weirdly totally on board with that. So kudos to Kilmer on that one. And it's just down the line you go, like, you think about the actors that Tony Scott worked with before Tarantino did, like Christopher Walken, Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know for sure whether or not that kind of propelled them to be in Tarantino's movies, but I imagine it had something to do with it.
I mean, also, Pitt won his Oscar for Hollywood. He's been in Glorious Bastards. Like, later, obviously, yeah. I mean, you're attracted to that dialogue. It's kind of hard not to.
Back to it. And the Reservoir Dogs, everybody was like, "Oh, this is a very kind of character-driven writer. I want to be in movies that
thing releases." The studio felt very happy at the fact that they were greenlighting this project from him. Like, they were like, they had to feel really good. Or like, this guy just cracked the code, and he's made something really great here and interesting. We've got his next thing. Let's hit while the iron's hot. And we got a guy, and we got the director of Top Gun doing it. Kind of sounds like good on paper.
And did you know that Reservoir Dogs, True Romance, Pulp Fiction, and Natural Born Killers all started as one script?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it got just too cumbersome, and Tarantino was like, I got to split these up.
You mean like Quentin Tarantino would start a project and then like just kind of either axe it all together and regroup and figure out how to either make it work or not? And it's not big major news or anything for any director to normally do that, Jay. Is that what you're kind of saying here?
No, well, I mean, obviously this is way before he has any of that clout to where any of that would matter. But that is where, according to him, the connected realities of like the Vega brothers comes into play. Originally, Clarence was a screenwriter, and he wrote a script called Natural Born Killers, and all this stuff. But for me, the most interesting thing about this film, and maybe the thing I love the most about it, is that you have, From Dusk Till Dawn, which is a Quentin Tarantino written script, but also very much feels kind of in the vein of Quentin Tarantino filmmaker. And then you have Natural Born Killers, which is based on, at the end of the day, he only got a story by credit on that movie. Oliver Stone really kind of took that and ran with it, where it's hard to know exactly what Tarantino was fully responsible for. This film, True Romance, feels entirely on the page like a Quentin Tarantino film, but on the screen, for me, it feels entirely like a Tony Scott film, especially compared to the stuff that Quentin Tarantino was making early in his career, where he really was going for this like almost punk rock, trying to piss people off to a certain extent, vibe to what he was doing. And Tony Scott, what I think is so underrated about him is his humanism and his focus on character. And there's a drastic change that Tony Scott made to the end of this film that wasn't in Tarantino's script, which he claims is like one of the only things he changed from page to screen. that we'll talk about as we go on. But the end of this film, especially, I think, is so touching in these weird ways, and I think that's kind of the secret sauce of Tony Scott. I love this movie. Just the design of the film, it looks so good. And one of the things that Tony Scott talked about was this idea of, in many ways, this is a film that has scenes that you really, really recognize. So what I wanted to do was set those scenes in places that you wouldn't normally think of those scenes set in, like the roller coaster for the drug deal sequence, like the giant billboard where it's like the kind of coming together and confessing their love for each other sequence. It's such a visually compelling film and a thematically interesting film. I think all the performances are great. This was the first Tony Scott movie where during the credits, it's like the Vince McMahon meme where you're like, oh, James Gandolfini. Oh, it's just like there's like 25 actors in the opening credits where you're like, these are future stars. And that would also become one of the trademarks of Tony Scott over the course of his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I'm being honest. This was the first time I'd ever seen True Romance. Mm-hmm. And for many people out there that know me, I really like Tarantino's movies. Some of the first ever
Tarantino head.
Yeah, I wouldn't like put him on a Mount Rushmore or anything, but I do
love Tarantino.
But I love his
I love Tarantino.
I love his movies though. Like, and I also think, I mean, obviously the dude needs to shut up sometimes. You know what I mean? And when I mean sometimes, I mean a lot. But I think he is one of the best we got, like easily. When he makes movies that are events. Say what you want about him. You may not like certain things that he does in his movies or whatnot. They're events, and we all, whether you like it or not, shut up and go see those movies.
He's one of the most important living directors.
No absolutely, doubt about it. Absolutely. And I love me some Tony Scott. Always have. But I, for some reason, never put this one on. I always wanted to. I always needed a purpose. And Jay Ledbetter gave me the perfect purpose in doing this series.
Yeah. You got that Arrow 4K?
I got that Arrow 4K, baby. It was a sale.
It's a good 4K.
And it's a very good 4K. And I watched it. And I watched this thing twice. And I had to watch it twice because the first time I watched it, I had a little bit of distractions going on in the house. And also I had massive expectations. You're talking about two directors that mean a lot to me. You're talking about scenes that have been talked about and characters that have been talked about by so many people to me over the years as the greatest characters of all time. You know what I mean? Or the best scene ever. And I'm talking, of course, about like Gary Oldman's performance as Drexel Spivey or the walk-in scene with Dennis Hopper. Those are the film bro moments that have been taken into this thing.
You think that walk-in Hopper scene feels a little Tarantino?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's a certain word used in that, and like the whole speech is like, you know what? I gotta say this. This is the truth. For the longest time, I have been like one of these guys that I've been very ignorant to the criticisms that, well, Tarantino uses the N-word a lot in his stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, but most of the characters that are using it are African-American or black. Outside of like...
Or Quentin Tarantino.
Or Quentin Tarantino himself, which I don't agree with. But... Or the racist scum, like in like something like Django or Hateful Eight, right? And it always felt like it makes sense. And I think when I watch this movie, I understand where all those criticisms come from. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. I get it. Because, yeah, I mean, it's a great scene, but does it need that? No, but I get it. And
well, you know, but Patricia Arquette on the set was uncomfortable with a lot of the racially charged dialogue of the movie.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, they're all scumbags. I get that, but it was It was tough. It was tough and it was also
there's a lot to break down in that regard with early Tarantino.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, the earlier films where he's letting that go.
In my opinion, it is kind of that punk rock mentality where he's trying to see kind of what he can get away with and trying to provoke in ways that eventually I think he would kind of let go of.
Yeah.
I do want to say too, at the risk of getting canceled, but I do want to say too that I feel like there's a bit of authenticity in it, though, in that those characters would talk like that. Like,
yeah,
I grew up,
I
grew up in the South, and I mean, I'll just tell you right now, my dad would throw the N-word around left and right when I was a kid, and I heard a lot of different people say it. I mean, I've probably said it in my life, but it's not something that I, condoned or whatever. But if a scene is being created to kind of give you that queasy feeling while also entertaining you at the same time, I feel like he definitely accomplished that with this scene, because it is uncomfortable, but you are
grabs your attention.
Yeah. It's an attention grabber. I did not expect it. That's the thing, because it is we're just going to talk about this scene right now, might as well. I had heard so much about it as like, this is
probably the most famous scene in the movie.
It's probably the most famous scene in the movie. Maybe the ending, like the shootout, too. Because, and I have thoughts on that in a second, but I just thought about it from the perspective of, I understand the criticisms. I'm with you, Gerald. I think a lot of the times, in his movies, when that word is used, it is mostly through characters that are either vile scum or they are African American within themselves, and they speak those words in their environment because that's the environment that they live in. And I get that. And honestly too, people have had problems with it over the years. The actors that have said that, primarily the one actor that has been in all these films, including even this, Samuel L. Jackson, does not have a problem with this dialogue. Most people don't have a problem with it. I think people online want to get all this Spike. Well, yeah, but that's the interesting thing about Spike, is that like Sam Jackson's caught in the middle of all of it, right? And
that is very funny.
And Sam has been on the record like, Spike doesn't like it, but I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, he's got a right to say it, and and so
that one interview where some white interviewer is like, "What do you think about the controversy of using the N-word?" And Samuel L. Jackson's just like, "What word are you talking about?"
He's talking. Well, that was Jake Hamilton. And that was, and I remember that. It was during the Django Unchained, and he almost got him in trouble and everything. It went viral. But it was also interesting too. Like Spike set himself up with the I can't believe Tarantino said, used all that for Django Unchained, and they went, well, have you seen the film, Spike? Well, no, I haven't seen the film, and no, I'm not going to see the film. And it's just like, well, you can't do that and not engage with it and see it in the content. But I get it. You know what I mean? At the same time, I think he was making Old Boy. But anyway, that's
in the context of that scene, though. To Gerald's point, it
feels real. I mean, it feels like what those characters would say.
I mean, you're talking about a kind of like a low life cop and these gangsters, and he's trying to get under their skin because they're about to kill him, and he's saying things that are the most offensive things you could ever, and I get it.
He's really quoting historical facts, but he knows
it's going to get him killed.
It's going to hit them in a different way.
Yeah, he's phrasing it in a provocative way that'll piss them off. And also, I will say, from that perspective, looking at it again as this really interesting film, from the perspective of it's Quentin Tarantino's work being reflected through somebody else's point of view. Tony Scott, you compare that scene to the Quentin Tarantino scene from Pulp Fiction, which is supposed to be played as like this is like a purely...
Oh, are you talking like when he says it?
When Quentin Tarantino is talking about
when they're talking about the guy in the back of the head. Yeah.
Yes. In this film, kind of in general, I think Tony Scott kind of understands how psychotic many of the situations are. And I think because of that, gives it more this kind of fairy tale backdrop. And in that sequence, it is more biting, and it hits you a little harder than when Tarantino does it in Pulp Fiction in an effective way. Not that I love Pulp Fiction. I'm not going to act like I don't like Pulp Fiction, but I have a harder time choking down the Tarantino scene in Pulp Fiction than I do.
No, I agree.
I agree. It feels less. Yeah, it feels
like unnecessary
and less. Right.
It feels unnecessary, and it's like you can justify it. It's like, well, it's kind of like how Tarantino hangs out with his friends and he gets comfortable with it and saying it, and he's married to, the character's married to a black woman and all that in that film and da-da-da-da. But is it necessary? Does it enhance that scene? Like what you're talking about, Gerald, does it enhance that from just not saying like, I got a dead guy in my house to saying the N-word? Do you need to say that? It doesn't elevate that at all. But what you're saying here, and I agree with it, because then also too, to have this scene and then also have Drexel Spivey, which I find to be really fascinating. Again, why Arquette was kind of queasy about a lot of this stuff is the racial dynamics of a character also like that, where he is completely white and engulfed himself within black culture and is basically speaking, dressing, acting like this. I mean, it's a fascinating juxtaposition.
It's almost like abstractly blackface.
Yeah,
actual blackface, but like
he's got the
dreads. For real. I mean,
Gary Oldman is so good in this.
He's so good in this, and he's so an absolute weasel. But it's showing that pretty much and this is the other thing that about his movies that Tarantino always has. There aren't a lot of real heroes in these movies. There are a lot of the characters that he writes are absolute scumbags.
Early Tarantino, for sure.
Very much for sure.
And what Tony Scott adds is this real sense of empathy that I think, not necessarily always for worse, but just it's different than from certainly Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction especially. Those are like really mean movies.
Yeah.
And True Romance is largely a mean movie, but has this like really beating heart at the center of it. And I think that comes from Tony Scott.
No, I know. I agree, because that's why, I mean, the good characters here are Clarence and Alabama, and their love shines through all of this crime and racism and violence and everything that's going on in this film, because pretty much everyone else in this movie has a violent motive behind it. And what's interesting is them, in order to feel like they need to escape, they need to embrace some of that violence, become that denominator, but that's not within their DNA. That's not who they are as people.
To get away from it.
Yeah. And I think that's fascinating. And listen, the first, I guess like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of this movie before it gets to Drexel Spivey and all that, like when it's just Slater and Arquette, it's just fantastic filmmaking. It really is. It's just setting the stage for and obviously the use of the Badlands score theme, which when it was in my house and playing, my wife was just, she was like, why do they keep doing that? And I'm like, I think it is to show that this is the only time in the film when you thoroughly know that there is innocence involved at all, and the establishing of this romance, no matter how twisted it may get by the end of the film. And I just think both of them are wonderful. And again, it has that thing that Tarantino sort of taps into, his unabashed love of Los Angeles, his unabashed love of cinema, his sort of nerddom is in the pop culture. It is drenched in it. And that is how they identify. It really is kind of like an interesting artifact to see a movie like this 30 years later, because it's a movie that about people identifying through the movies they watch, the comic books, the music. And
Tarantino still calls this maybe his most autobiographical film.
I can see that
he was at that time.
I can see. I can see this movie, and I understand like a lot of the, like for me, when I was watching True Romance and I was seeing Clarence in Alabama, I was like, oh, I get the guy that wrote Jackie Brown a couple of years later, because there's the underlying through all those scumbags, right? There's a romance in that movie, and
that feels much more in the vein of this movie. I agree. Which maybe was Tarantino kind of taking some lessons from
Tony Scott. That's what I was wondering about when I was thinking about Jackie Brown again. After watching this, I was like, I think because he always is he's a mimic. That's what Tarantino is. He's the ultimate.
He's
mimic.
A remixer.
Yeah, he's a remixer. He's and there's nothing wrong with taking from others and stealing. It's that do you then make something new of it yourself?
There's nothing wrong with stealing, Ryan.
What?
It's been done from the dawn of cinema, folks. I don't know what to tell you.
Grand Theft Auto, my friend.
Well, I mean, to Ryan's point, though, I mean, Alabama and Clarence kind of their whole romance starts and they fall in love at a Sonny Chiba triple feature. So right there at that moment, you're like, what? So like, where's this woman in my life? You know what I mean? It's just like not something that you would think would happen.
Audiences in the 90s, you couldn't pay guys $10 to probably name a Sonny Chiba
and then,
film. And then,
towards the end of the film, you have him going like, Rio Bravo, that's a real movie.
And I'm like,
Max, that's a real movie.
I'm like,
genre movies, yeah.
Oh, we can tell you've owned a video store before or been in a video store before, dude. Like,
I'm gonna try and master a Christian Slater impression by the end of this.
Do you think so?
He's got such a unique voice.
He does. What do you guys think of Slater in general as an actor? Because he's such an interesting kind of enigma in Hollywood, right?
He had such a moment, and then he kind of fluttered away.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, what happened?
That's my thing. Is I thought he was great in this and Heathers. And I mean, we were talking about anecdotes. In '94, I was a senior in high school, and I went on this field trip for my marketing club that I was in at the time, and they took us to Saturday Night Live, and it was Christian Slater and the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh,
I didn't meet Slater, but I got to see him a couple years after this. So
hell yeah, Pump Up the Volume too. By the way, really good movie.
Yeah, Pump Up the Volume.
That's a good movie.
Jay, I like him though. I like him.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, and then him and Pitt work together the next year in Interview with a Vampire. He plays like the kind of like the journalist that Pitt tells the tale to.
Let me tell you, Brad Pitt is so good in this movie.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like
his Honey Bear Bong.
Yeah, is it like, I mean, like he's essentially playing, I mean, like a stoner the entire time. It's kind of like
they said David Gordon Green and Judd Apatow were like, Brad Pitt's character in True Romance was basically the influence to make Pineapple Express.
Really?
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. That's not surprising. It's not surprising at all. But like he had only really done, he'd only really done Thelma and Louise and A River Runs Through It.
Well, he had done other stuff that didn't work.
But like nothing, but like his big break is Thelma and Louise.
Right.
He has A River Runs
you're
Through
the
It.
next big movie star. And then he has several things that don't really work. And then A River Runs Through It is like whatever. And then
he's in this.
Tony Scott is like, please, for the love of God, put me in this Quentin Tarantino scripted movie.
And he's just part of the ensemble. And then the next year he has Legends of the Fall, Interview with a Vampire. And then 95 he has 12 Monkeys, and it's off to the races.
Well, you can see the kind of lineage too, because this was 93 and he, like Jay said, it was like, put me in this movie written by Tarantino. And now if you think of Tarantino, you think of Brad Pitt as one of his
that's
collaborators.
Like that's one of like, I mean, when
Has he just done the two?
He's just
Inglourious
Basterds and
Once Upon a Time, like
but
him, and
he won his Oscar with Tarantino.
Well, he was gonna do supposedly. Well, that's the whole movie critic thing. He was gonna do a third one, and it was, I think, gonna be Cliff Booth, is what all the reports were indicating and everything, and it was gonna be a sort of quasi continuation or spinoff or prequel or something within that universe to finish everything off.
What do y'all think about the 10 movie thing?
I knew you were gonna. I knew we were gonna go.
We got to bring it up.
One, I think it's perfect for a movie series podcast.
I mean, that is good. It's like a good
top 10 list. What are your top 10 Tarantino films?
Yeah.
I think for him it makes sense.
I think it's annoying.
It is. I think it makes sense to Ryan's point, but I think it's annoying as well. I don't know. Let me ask you guys this. I mean,
okay,
you guys are cinephiles. What? Is it more?
What are you not one? Like,
well,
come on, Gerald.
I meant like fellows.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is it more? Does it have more substance for you guys as Tarantino fans to know that it's his last film when you go to watch it, or to see it and then find out after the fact that was his last film?
To be honest,
if you go into it knowing it is his last movie, that comes with so much pressure.
That's what I'm saying.
It is expected to be like his definitive masterpiece, and it will almost inevitably disappoint.
Yeah, well, and you're going to be like,
I would like to counter that, because when I went into The Boy and the Heron, and I was looking up to see it at TIFF opening night, it hadn't been announced that Miyazaki was potentially working on a new project at that time. And so I went into that with the idea of this is potentially going to be the last film, right? And you have to also...
It is potentially going to be the last film.
We never hear from the man speak. It's like Tarantino said. But it was known throughout pretty much anyone until he specified afterwards that I'm making another film. Until he spoke, no one knew. So yes, going in, I thought it was his last film. And also, just to put it out there, every film could be their last film. They may never make another movie again. The old age, all this different stuff. But just to get, not to have caveats. I'm just saying that's just the truth.
But when he goes out of his way to make it clear that it is his goal to make 10 films and then retire, and he is on the precipice of his 10th.
He's not retiring from making. Well, to be fair,
I feel like it puts too much of a bullseye on the project. That's what I think.
I think it puts pressure on him. I don't think it puts really any pressure on me. I'm going to see a Quentin Tarantino movie. I don't care if it's the last one. And the other thing is that he stated like his big grand final big movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I was not, and that the last film is more like an epilogue to everything.
That's such a crock. He's not going to hold to that. That's so fun.
So I think he kind of did, because he realized that the project he was making was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was kind of sounding a little out of control. And I actually commend him for taking the step back and saying, I think this is too meta. I think this is too much. Would I have liked to seen it? Absolutely, because I would have loved to see his take on meta commentaries within film and big stuff like that. But also, it's like it just didn't seem like a movie. Like, do I want him to make a movie though that he hates making? Because it seemed like he didn't like writing it at a certain point or coming up with it.
It's like my podcast partner Nick said, Ryan, is that because we covered this when it came up in the news initially a few weeks ago, but. What he said that was a great point is he was like, I don't care, because if Tarantino doesn't want to make it, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Like he knows
that's totally fair.
If he's not into the project, then especially if it's his last film, you're not going to get his A game. You know what I mean? So if he wants to scrap it and do something else, then I'll wait a couple years.
Will he stress himself out into oblivion making any movie because he's like, this has to be the last one I make?
I don't think he ever has.
I think he doesn't have to be as precious.
Look,
about
here's what we're not. Here's what we're kind of skirting around a little bit. Alex Garland made Civil War, and he said, "You know what? I don't want to direct movies anymore." But he'd already made Civil War, and a lot of people had seen it. I loved it, by the way. What's wrong with that? Tarantino is now going to have multiple years where people are like, where's your last movie? Not where's your next movie?
They already have been. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I love Tarantino. Like Ryan said, I'm going to be there regardless. I don't care what the guy makes. I'll be there for it. But I just think he added an extra layer that didn't really need to be there. And I feel like may infringe on the creative process at the end of the day, because we're going to be expecting Pulp Fiction plus plus plus.
I think
the general the philosophy of I need to stop making movies before I lose it is just a fallacy.
Well, I mean, I think there's
a gentleman named Martin Scorsese who is just.
But for every Scorsese, there is, and I'm going to just say it, and I'm going to throw him out under the bus. It is his brother series that we're talking about. There are Ridley's. Ridley's not always hitting it out of the park. Spielberg's not always hitting it out of the park.
You do get a Last Duel in there.
You get one. You get one for every like 6 or 7 or 8 films. I get a House of Gucci. I get a Napoleon. I get a Robin Hood.
Tarantino is a more
Body of Lies,
talented, in my opinion, filmmaker than Ridley Scott.
Exodus, Gods and Kings.
The other thing that Tarantino has that Ridley Scott doesn't have is he's a writer-director.
Yeah.
Right? Where Ridley Scott is out there maybe adapting material that he shouldn't be. Tarantino is fully in charge of
his project. Yeah.
He's making it.
Yeah.
I just don't think he has to be as.
I think the other point. This is a big point to make to your. I'm not trying to argue with you, Jay, or anything. I love you, buddy.
You better not be.
Just because he's done with filmmaking doesn't mean he's done making anything whatsoever. He's made books. He's talked about making.
I'd rather him make movies.
I've heard him talk about
plainly. I would rather him keep making movies.
I have heard he's interested in the miniseries, and I think this movie critic idea sounded more and more like a miniseries idea rather than it sounded like a movie, because it was just getting so big and expansive. And I think if he came back to it and like HBO offered him $200 million to make the biggest 8-part miniseries of his life, he'd totally do it in a heartbeat. And he's talked about making Once Upon a Time into a play like
for so long.
I know, but it's the way in which,
again, I would rather him just
people are making I mean, like, some I would love him to make movies until the end of time, but I don't think
guys who can kind of do whatever he wants making movies.
Him and Nolan.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of other ones, I think, but they're the definitive. We're going to make original stuff.
I guess Paul Thomas Anderson can too now, because how much does his new movie cost?
$100 million.
That is insane.
I listen, giddy the fuck up. Like I'm so, but I'm also extremely nervous about the fact that it is like a social commentary. It seems like it's modern.
I have no idea.
No idea what it's going to be, but it's Paul Thomas Anderson. I have no doubt that it'll be great, because what man's never made a bad movie, in my opinion. And
have we even gotten to, does Ryan like this movie or not?
I like this movie. I like this movie a lot. I think that it's really interesting.
Didn't love it on your first watch.
I think the expectation of the let's get back to True Romance. But I think that the expectation of it, long way around to get to say, I think that I had to get over that. And then I sat back and I knew what I was expecting, and I was able to find, I think that this movie is sweet, but it's
sweet.
But it's also extremely dangerous and vile. Like I think that it is the perfect follow-up from The Last Boy Scout. We just talked about that film, Jay. It is this measure of like, I have this romance, and that's what the title is, but I'm surrounded by two lovely, starstruck, incredibly sexy characters in a world of vile evil and repulsion. But
tonally, it is like a fairy tale.
It is. No, it is. And that's where Tarantino comes in. Well, it comes off because like it feels very cartoonish. Like, because like not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Hang on.
Way. The early Tarantino stuff feels more in the vein of something kind of like a Last Boy Scout, where it is like, oh, these characters are living in some variation of hell.
I think that this is definitely you've got that here. You know what I mean? But I think that what happens when two people that are apart or interweaved within hell want to find love and break
living
out of
inside
it.
this like bubble of light.
Exactly. And what if they want to break out of the darkness? What's the road that they're going to have to take to kind of get there? And it's going to be bloody. It's going to be dangerous. It's filled with cheeseburgers, which I got to tell you, this movie made me want a cheeseburger because like he's ordering like cheeseburgers nonstop throughout this movie.
That's the best cheeseburger
I've ever had. And I was just like, God damn it, please stop. Because this movie is making me hungry. It's making me excited. It's got kind of all the things you want from it's a very 90s movie. That's the thing. Like I was watching this is unabashedly a 90s movie. And I was thinking about just how we talked about it with the 80s. He made the quintessential 80s movie with Top Gun, right? Reagan era defining Top Gun fucking movie, right? And this was like this feels like at times a relic of the 90s, but it's great because it's the 90s. You can only get away with shit like this in the 90s. But then Tony Scott's direction, he's able to rein in also some of Tarantino's bad habits as well too, and you just see the directorial decisions throughout it. It's a good movie. It's a good one. The more I think about it,
one of the things I really, really love about True Romance, and I rewatched it for this podcast, and it's probably
hell
the 10th
yeah,
time I've seen it at least, is the pacing of this movie is fucking perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are bombastic, dare I say, iconic scenes in this movie that are spaced out to a perfect length from each other that it will not allow the viewer to lose interest. You have the first half hour, which really sets up the romance between Clarence and Alabama, and then we get a multitude of scenes that are spaced out perfectly. You have the Drexel confrontation that you mentioned, Ryan, and Gary Oldman is at the top of his game, hamming it up in this role as Drexel. You have this scene with Alabama and James Gandolfini in the hotel room, which
I gotta tell you, that's
let me real quick. We'll come to that Alabama scene, but that one, the fucking shootout at the end. We already talked about the dialogue heavy tension between the Hopper walking scene, which what we didn't talk about. We're talking about the racial undertones and stuff, but what we didn't talk about with that scene was two veteran actors feeding off of each other, and I mean a master class in just bouncing off of each other, walking and Hopper back and forth, and Gandolfini's actually in that scene, and he's standing
like the back.
And you got to think some of the facial expressions he's making in that scene are his awe of seeing what these two legends are doing on camera. But I just love. I don't want to fail to mention that I've seen this movie 10 times. It's 30 years old, and the pacing. I'm always there. The comedy with Bronson Pino's character with the fucking cocaine on his face when he gets pulled over by the cop.
He's so good in this.
But I mean, it's just so many. And we already talked about Brad Pitt's comedic bits in this movie, which is basically just him existing. But I mean, it's just so funny in it. But the pacing, this is something that's missing a lot of times in Hollywood. And even though you can't really shoehorn this movie into a specific category at the video store, it's like you watch it and you're just like always into what's happening. And Tony Scott never lets you drift out of the consciousness of this movie. And that it's something that I just am really inspired by when I watch it. It's just so awesome to be like engaged. And of course, this isn't the only time it's happened, but literally to be engaged from frame A to frame Z, like how many times does that happen? Yeah. You know, you could really, really like a movie, but how many times are you engaged from the opening credits to the ending credits, like the entire time? And I feel like True Romance nails that, man. Like I'm never bored in this movie.
Jay, you know what was another movie I thought about when I was watching this film, other than something that Tarantino made, was a completely different film. And I think I don't know when it came out. It must have been like around this time too. I was thinking a lot about Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking a lot about
tonally there are some similarities.
I was thinking about just like
that's a fairy tale too.
The very fairy tale nature, the sort of like use of like this American iconography of the Wizard of Oz, using Elvis Presley here, which is
a very
excellent,
Elvis heavy movie.
A very Elvis heavy movie. The act of like that these two, lovebirds are essentially going through a wasteland of the most vile character. Yeah, vile character.
I still maintain Laura Dern and Wild at Heart might be the best single human being who's ever looked in history.
Might be, but I don't know. For me personally, I agree with everything that Gerald you're saying. I just think that the movie has and it's an interesting tone, right? It's a tone that I think that is not like other Tarantino films that come out. I feel like it has that sort of like the manicness of a younger man writing this script, having all these ideas, but then it's also Scott's able to focus it so much and be like, yeah, there's this gangster over here and there's confrontation and we got to get the drugs and we're having this guy meet that guy and all these different things. And it's leading to this insane shootout, which feels like a shootout, by the way, that studios tried to mimic and try to recreate.
Oh my God.
For the next 30 years.
That tried to imitate this.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I still kind of feel like they're doing it nowadays, but it's all due to, I think, Scott realizing what's the real focus here? What is this? It's the titular romance, right? And so I need to have these scenes where you talk about the Gandolfini scene. It's rough and it is dirty and it is bloody and it is vile. Okay. And yet, by the end of it, those two are right back in each other's arms. That music's playing again. It just understands like the only way to get this movie to move forward is to
Hans Zimmer get away with this.
Well,
yeah, I mean, like that's for me the interesting part. It's like every time it's about to go off the rails, or it might go too far into being a pulpy Tarantino film, it grounds itself back into this romance, and you're able to buy it as me as an audience member so well.
Well, what I want to say before we get away from that scene, though, is I love the choice, and I assume it was on the page, but obviously we know what we saw in the movie, so we know it was Scott's vision. But I love that Christian Slater's ordering the burgers. He's having another moment where he can't shut up about Elvis. He's telling this random dude that he met at the diner about his love of Elvis and the Time magazine article.
Elvis fanatics are kind of weird. It's like, look in the
and all that shit's happening while Patricia Arquette's getting fucking brutally assaulted by Gandolfini at the hotel room. And so Tony Scott does this wonderful thing because it's a constant trope in movies where is the hero going to get there in time? Is he going to get there to save her?
Oh, I like that.
And the choice was made that she is her hero. She comes out of that situation by outsmarting Gandolfini and by taking charge and overcoming those odds. And I fucking love that. I wanted to, did you guys kind of see that? You see what I'm saying? Like, because the whole time we're kind of like, where is he? Come save her. Come help her. But at the end of the day, she got up on her own. I thought that was a great choice.
She's kind of empowered in that scene while getting brutally beaten, which I think is kind of the point of it, is to make the viewer kind of sit in it and be like, all of this is happening, but she is so mentally strong that she's going through it and eventually is victorious in that moment. So it's making you very uncomfortable while also empowering Alabama. It's a real tightrope walk they're performing in that scene. I agree.
Gandolfini's fucking great.
It's impressive. I mean, he's so good. He is so good.
To do The Sopranos after this, you can see why. I mean, the guy is commanding on screen, and
he is
that's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie is Alabama's overcoming Gandolfini. I mean, I love the Hopper scene, but just from a pure like
My favorite scene is the
adrenaline.
last scene. I literally cried watching this movie, guys. I cried.
You cried?
Oh wow,
The last scene.
wow.
I cried watching the last scene of this movie. Yeah, I did.
With the
It's
kid now. Well, you have a kid now.
It's
and
You
all that.
and the dad. It's the dad bump.
I mean, it really
You named
it
it
really
Elvis
is.
and everything. Yeah, no, I
like,
get it. Yeah,
you got it. Oh yeah, yeah, I get it now. I get it, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
No, I know. I mean, like, I also think, well, one, Gandolfini, one of the great actors. I miss him terribly. Him and Philip Seymour Hoffman, they're my two guys that I just, anytime they were in anything, doing these series that we've done, seeing him kind of in stuff, like especially in a lot of these early Tony Scott movies, because he's in this and next week's show, Crimson Tide, which I think he's excellent in that movie as well too. There's just something kind of lived in about the way in which he presents himself as these gangsters. It adds the way he's able, like, this is a very throwaway character and a very vile and disgusting character, and one that we, most likely done nowadays.
So character. Oh my God.
Nowadays, like, that's the thing about Tony Scott movies. Like, the henchmen have a little bit extra to do.
Cast great actors.
Yeah, and he's like,
he's such,
I can't.
It's such an
this
eye
is a
for
who's
talent.
who.
It's just like a guy that, like, I can't waste him. I've got a very trained, ready to go actor here. I got to give them something on the page to do. And yeah, I think also too, like, the way in which she's, defying his violence is very interesting too, because I think that she knows that, she is free from this world already at this point. She's with Clarence, and so therefore nothing can hurt her. I think nothing can break her, because it's the old thing that we said about the Wachowskis, and I think that this movie has a little bit of it too. It's the power of love, baby. You know what I mean? It's the power of love, and how
this is a movie about the power of love.
Love can make you do some really crazy, unabashed shit, and it can make you believe.
That's the fairy tale of it.
Yeah, that's the fairy tale. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really a feat. I mean, it's really a feat that Tony Scott made a romance, and all this shit's kind of going on around it. I mean, It's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, that's at the center of the story the entire time. I want to give a huge shout out to Tom Sizemore in this movie. This motherfucker is so funny as one of the FBI agents.
I love this guy.
Listening on the taps and
don't you turn on me! Don't you turn on me, you son of a bitch! You motherfucker!
He's like narrating. He's narrating what he's listening to. He's narrating what we're seeing. And
that scene is so good. Oh, the editing in that scene is incrable. It's incredible.
He's not going to shoot him. He's not going to shoot him. And then it cuts back to the elevator, and it comes back to him. He goes, I think he's going to fucking shoot him.
God, I love this guy.
Is so good.
Oh man. Yeah.
Hosmer does rock. Do you know that? Well, you know the We'll go into spoiler territory here. You know, the original ending was for Slater to die.
Yeah, that one.
Know that.
Yeah,
Tarantino wrote it.
Tarantino
for Clarence. Tarantino wrote it for Clarence to die. And Tony Scott, he shot this movie sequentially.
Yeah,
and he says, like, by the end of the shoot, he was like, "I'm in love with these characters. I don't want him to die. Like, I just don't want."
Was Tarantino mad about that?
Tarantino originally was very resistant to that.
Yeah,
so was she going to leave at the end and then have the kid but be a single mom? Was that
they shot the ending where he does die? They shot both, and there's the alternate ending on the Arrow release.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
And there's no kid. There's no kid.
She's just driving away.
That they show in the film. Yeah. It's just that she does a different narration that's more about, what am I going to do moving forward? And it just kind of ends.
I don't know about that. I kind of like the hopeful, tearful ending.
I agree. I think it really fits into certainly the Tony Scott mentality, and I think also...
I think it fits into the daydream.
I don't think this movie would be nearly as important or had the following that it has gained without that ending, because
I agree.
I mean, it really is kind of a magical.
It's all about
to the point where you do have to consider, like, is it a fantasy? Like, that debate.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, because he's shot and in the car and she's driving, and like Do they really get away? Is it a fantasy?
Literally shot in the head.
Like, yeah, it's almost, honestly, it's when I was
the
thinking,
ultimate fake out.
well, it was the ending of this was another movie I was thinking of, which I was thinking about a lot of movies when this was happening. But I think I think about a lot of, well, it wasn't Ratatouille. I was thinking a lot of the ending of Taxi Driver, and how Scorsese kind of leaves that up to the audience of whether you believe that this event is still like he got out, or if he's mentally not there. Just like within the final shot, it's like in the cab and everything, how life goes on. And I was thinking about that.
It's so sweet that it has to be literal.
I mean, you could think of it like that, but it would also, like, if you're like somebody I know, hashtag Mr. Cynical over here, and you could interpret it as like
cynical, but God, you give me some sweetness. Oh, I'm putty in your freaking hands.
I'm just saying, like, I think that you can see it both ways. I think that it's actually better, and I think, again, that's another great. That's the beauty of Tony Scott being like, well, you're the screenwriter, I'm the director, I'm gonna make this decision. And I'm sure they tested it with audiences, and probably by the end, audiences really wanted to see that. But I feel like it's right to keep the fairy tale alive, even
That's
if you then believe
that makes a lot more sense in a Tony Scott movie than an early Tarantino movie.
Yeah, because
I think
what you have to remember too. I'm sorry. What I was to say is what you have to remember too is everybody dies at the end of this movie.
Right.
Literally everybody, except for Clarence and Alabama, and I guess Michael Rappaport gets away. And
damn it! I wish he would have died at the end of this movie.
He's good. He's good in this.
God, he is good. Yeah.
I'd fucking hate that guy though.
Another thing I love.
Sorry, you're just not going to get me to say anything nice about that son of a bitch.
Another thing I love about Bronson in this movie, by the way, is when he's on the phone with Saul Rubinek, and he's like, and Saul's on the other line, and he's like, "Who the fuck is Dick?" And he's like, "You want me to suck his dick?"
Oh, that's
he's like, "Oh no,
funny.
who the fuck is Dick?"
Okay.
And Elliot is just like, "Oh,
yeah,
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming."
Yeah. Oh my God. Kind of a jump scare, by the way, too, of seeing Sam Jackson in the title cards and then like him dead in like the first 5 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, it's like Goodfellas all
over
again.
I was gonna say, I was like, oh, okay. Someone watched Goodfellas and really liked it. Okay.
Can you do the same thing you did on Goodfellas?
Can you just show up here and screw up one time? But no, I think, by the way, Kilmer is amazing in this movie as playing Elvis. By the way, I mean, he's you don't see him.
Really just good. Like shout out for him doing this.
Yeah, this is such a. He's
got a reputation for being a really vain, difficult actor
at the time.
Did this?
Yeah. Well, he's also a big actor, right? Like he doesn't.
This time,
He doesn't need.
He had just played Jim Morrison the year before this, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't. But I mean, like, it's like, hey, I could show up a couple days and play Elvis Presley. All right, cool.
And the voice inflection was great. The whole whimsical, surreal, kind of conscience that Elvis was for Clarence, I thought makes sense with his character, and it really added another layer to that kind of pop culture, that just radiates from this movie to begin with. And I'm a huge Elvis fan, so that's another reason why I might be biased about loving this movie so much. But we have a ton of Elvis vinyl records right inside the house here. I mean,
really?
My parents listened to him when I was growing up. I mean, I'm an Austin Butler girly.
What'd you think of Lordy?
Now we're talking.
I thought it was good. I didn't think he nailed the mannerisms very, very well, but I thought Butler did a really good job. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I think it was more because it was Jacob Elordi.
We just talked. We just covered Priscilla. On the pod.
Did you like the film? It's a good movie.
I did. It's a good movie. I liked a lot of the choices that were made. I love the ending of it and her kind of driving off to the Dolly song and stuff. And I don't know. I just, because Elvis and Me was a miniseries, I think in the 80s. And my mom had that on VHS, and that's what it's based on. And I can remember the Elvis and Me miniseries that we had being like Priscilla was much more outspoken and like extroverted than she was than Kaylee Spaney's portrayal. But with that being said, I did love Kaylee's quiet approach to that character. I thought it was just a different vision, but I love Sophia, so you would have had to try really hard for me not to like it. Just because I'm a fanboy of hers, but
fits within her filmography too. Yeah.
I think so. My favorite movie of hers has always been Lost in Translation. I just can't get away from that one. I just love it so much. But
Jay's was
she's done a lot of good stuff.
Jay's was Marie Antoinette.
That's a good one.
What
Virgin
my favorite?
Suicides.
Oh no, somewhere. I'm sorry.
No. Virgin. You and I both.
Oh, did we both? Did we both do Virgin Suicide? Oh,
yeah, we both did Virgin Suicides.
Oh,
that's a good one.
I love Virgin.
That'd probably be my number 2, actually.
That's an insane debut. It's an insane debut. Like to be that confident in your dad's Francis Ford Coppola, and you're just like I see this vision and it comes to light, and now you're just.
We haven't talked enough about Gary Oldman.
Let's do it. God. You got an impression?
I don't think I'm allowed to do an impression.
I was gonna say I can't do my impression.
No, I don't want you guys to get canceled. We already talked. We already talked a lot about that other scene and
talk about an impression. He leaves one in this movie
for sure.
Oh,
Is this one
kind of kicks off his lunatic era?
Well, like I always loved how he did.
Was Leon the Professional in relation to this?
That was 94, the next year,
right?
Yeah, the next year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
94, big year, by the way. Big year for cinema for a lot of these people. But I just remember Oldman talking about, this is a movie that comes out later, and you're talking about being Titanic, or being a big fan of Titanic, Gerald. The movie that dethroned Titanic at the box office finally for number 1. Do you remember what the movie was? Jay, do you know this?
I'm assuming it's a Gary Oldman film. So
that's correct.
Fifth Element.
It was not Fifth Element. It was Lost in Space.
What? I never would have guessed that.
Yeah. And the reason why I know this is because I've seen that movie and it's terrible. And I remember seeing it in the theater and it was terrible. But also Oldman talked about like he was in this era, and it starts around, I would say more like Sid and Nancy, I guess. But it really picks up here in the 90s, right? Of playing these just like, he also plays Lee Harvey Oswald, for Christ's sake. Of just these unlikable guys, murderous guys that, in movies that he also can't show his family. So it was always funny. He was like, I picked Lost in Translation, not Lost in Translation, Lost in Space to make a movie for my kids to see. And then when I was done making that movie, I didn't want my kids to see it because it was so bad. So it's always one of like the great things. But I think Oldman here, is this one of his most iconic performances of his career?
Oh,
probably.
That's a good question.
Is this a Mount Rushmore, Oldman?
The reason I say probably is because a couple years ago, I mentioned a live stream for The Cure earlier. A couple years ago, we did our top 5 Gary Oldman movies. And I had to come up with my list for that. And the reason I say probably is because when somebody says Gary Oldman to me, this is literally the first, maybe second behind Dracula performance.
I was going to say Dracula's right up there.
This is absolutely on his Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I would say like this, Dracula. I would say Sid and Nancy.
Give him Darkest Hour because it won him his Oscar.
That doesn't need to.
Nah.
I think
give him Commissioner Gordon before.
Yeah. I would give him. For me, it would be this, Sid and Nancy, probably either Fifth Element or Leon the Professional.
Dracula, Leon, for sure.
But Dracula's definitely up there.
He's also so good in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Oh, as the president,
Truman.
as Harry Truman. Yeah. Oh man, when he pulls out the hanky, the white flag.
He's so good when, I mean, him just being like, "You're embarrassing.
Get that crybaby out of here."
And what the best thing about that is I saw that movie a couple weeks early, and I guess I didn't have my finger on the pulse, but I didn't know he was in it.
No.
Oh, you didn't?
I did not know he was in it either.
And I'm watching it in IMAX, and I'm like, is that fucking Gary Oldman? Like, what is Nolan doing here? Like, he didn't tell anybody Oldman was in this, you know?
I got to tell you, when I watched Oppenheimer, the person that gave me the jump scare and then gave me, obviously, the heebie-jeebies was Casey Affleck. I totally forgot he was in it. He is
so good in it.
It's stone cold scary how, like, just, I felt everything in Cillian's performance because I was feeling it in the audience watching it every time. Like, it is one of those where it's just like, yeah, I understand why everyone thinks Casey Affleck's a scary human being because he played a freaking scary one in Oppenheimer. He's terrifying in that movie. But no, I mean, this is a performance from Oldman that shouldn't work. This thing should be embarrassing, but my God, did he put, and that's the thing. This is one of those, Jay, you mentioned Darkest Hour and why he has an Oscar. And why he got nominated in 2011.
I actually kind of like that movie, but
I don't. Well, you're a Joe Wright apologist, to be fair.
I weirdly have become a Joe Wright.
You really have.
Very odd.
Did you Pan?
I haven't seen Pan.
Oh, well, have fun with that.
Get back to us.
Yeah, get back to us on that. But 2011, he had Tinker Tailor come out, which is another, I think, really good performance. And there was this whole push to get him an Oscar nomination. Because people in his generation believe he is one of the greats to ever do it. Period. In the story. And this is one of those performances that people highlight a lot, like Sid and Nancy. Like, I talked to Jeffrey Wright last year, and he specifically highlighted Gary's work in movies like that because he's like, that's a guy that was willing to go anywhere to get a role, like to get the performance.
Has that rep.
You know what I mean? And you have to be fearless a little bit to try to look at the page and see this character.
He must have thought it was White Boy Day.
I mean,
it ain't White Boy Day.
It ain't White Boy Day.
It ain't White Boy Day. Yeah. I mean, Jay, this is an amazing performance.
It really is. And it's funny that because this is an illustrious career this guy has. I mean, Oscar winner, of course, but
he's like this, like, formally trained,
just And we're sitting here going, this is on his Mount Rushmore. He's on camera for what, 6 minutes, maybe?
Yeah. 6-7 minutes.
You can max it out. It's more than 10. Yeah.
Just does so much with it and just makes it his own to just a insane degree. I mean, like I said, somebody a couple years ago said we're going to do top 5 Gary Oldman movies, and aside from Dracula, this was probably 2 seconds later in my mind. I mean, this is just such a committed, transformative performance where, like what Jay said was very interesting when you told me that, because I had never heard that, where the guy was Tony Scott was like, it's a pimp who thinks he's black. I tell you, Gary Oldman definitely ran with that concept. I mean,
he sure did.
The Mac is playing on the TV in the back, which is a really, really good 70s blaxploitation film, and I feel like he borrowed a lot from that era too to kind of create his character. I don't know how much research he did, or if he did any, or if he knew about that era of films, but he kind of has that old school quote unquote pimp kind of vibe to him. It's almost like he's existing in the 70s here in the 90s, with the leopard skin robe that he wears, and the dreadlocks. The
costume and hair and makeup team also ran with the idea as well.
Yeah, but I'm in full-fledged agreement with you guys. It's just such a memorable performance by Oldman. It's definitely one of his best.
I mean, my God, this is literally the role he does after Bram Stoker's Dracula, by the way.
Can I ask you guys something? Because you'll know before I know. Has he ever worked with Tarantino?
Who, Oldman?
Oldman?
No.
I don't think so.
He's never been in a Tarantino film.
He has not been in a Tarantino movie.
Never been in a Tarantino directed.
That is a miss right there. We need to get him in one.
No, he's been too busy with Nolan and like Harry Potter. You know what I mean?
And
you know what he's really good in too? And because I rewatched it because the new one was coming out. He's really great in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Just gonna put that out there.
He's really good in that.
He is
really good.
That movie is so good.
I
mean, that's my favorite of the series. I just rewatched it too. Yeah.
Jay, you know what else he's good in?
Air Force One.
Yes, which is within this. That's the same year as The Fifth Element, mind you. In '97, but he's great in this movie from 2020 called Mank.
Mank. I love that movie.
I knew Gerald.
Ryan, you and I are like two of the ultimate defenders.
We'll go down with the ship on Mank. I love Mank. Oh,
Jesus Christ!
It's such a good movie.
Man,
he's so good, so good.
He's good. I agree with you on that part. His performance is good. Yeah.
Like mid-tier Fincher, but like still really good.
That's still pretty damn good.
That's better than most people's A tier. To be fair.
Remember his character in Hannibal? I
do remember
one of the most despicable characters.
Cordell. Yeah. Oh man, that's a bad movie, but he's good. That movie
is pretty bad. That's a Riddler. That's Tony's bro.
That's Tony's bro. Yeah, which is another. It's funny. Work with the Riddler. Transformation performance not so good there. But work with Tony. Maybe a stronger script. No, but I think the other thing is it's such an interesting. It's a big risk. It pays off because this guy is dangerous. He's a buffoon, also too. It was really interesting watching this because I'm like, oh, so like he's doing Eminem shtick before Eminem, almost like it's of that like. You know, my dad used to never really
even way more artificial than
it's very artificial. No, but like, hear me out, because like this is from like all the white rappers who have appropriated black culture that have the tons of security guards around them, but try to act completely tough, right? And what's so funny about this is like he's in a scene, and you know his henchman is beating up. Clarence, and then that's when he jumps in. So it felt very. I was watching. I was like, wow, this feels really kind of ahead of its time. Even though, yes, it also is completely inappropriate. But that's the point of it. Is that it feels like in this world this world has been corrupted, and it's no more different than our modern world in a lot of ways, where things have been taken and appropriated and stolen, and the power dynamics have shifted to the point where things inappropriately can be said and there's giant consequences. Things can be done like, you know, obviously this buffoonish cartoon character here with power. But that's where the kind of world we're here living in is that it feels at times grounded, but it's also completely elevated by these just buffoonish individuals. And I like the balance of it. It's it's like Gerald, it's like you're saying, we don't get to see movies like this get made anymore, where there's this blend of realism and fantasy mixed within the world building.
It's violent. It's kind of offensive. It's like, I mean, it's got like
it's very grimy.
A lot of good stuff.
Like like going to this house is like his I guess his lair or whatever, and I mean the use of the light, right? Where he's like
that's pushing the Tony Scott special, right?
There's that, but I'm talking about like Drexel just moving that light into
him moving the shade. Yeah, that rocks.
The one, like, you know, the talking of the Chinese food, and it's just like it's so perfectly constructed from a visual standpoint.
Clarence leaving his driver's license in his hand, though. What a dummy!
Right?
What a dummy! What a dummy
he is!
Yeah.
But also, what do we think of Patricia Arquette's performance? I'm curious.
I think she's amazing, and I think it's sort of
is this the performance of her career or no? Boyhood, or what do you think?
Lost Highway.
She's great in Lost Highway.
Again, working with Lynch.
What is so special about Patricia Arquette is that she does have this purity to her, kind of inherently, like the sweetness, but she's obviously also this like very sexy woman, and she also is willing to go to places that as a performer you feel are kind of uncomfortable to her, but she really embraces and goes for it. She's such a brave performer, I think. And you feel that like push and pull, and this, especially given the scene with Gandolfini, you just feel like that intense inner anguish in this performance. And also, she's so desirable in this movie. How could you not fall in love with Alabama?
I know Alabama has endured. I don't know if you guys watch Euphoria, but Sydney Sweeney was Alabama for Halloween on that TV series, and that was just like 2 years ago. So
interesting.
Which, if I was casting this movie now, I would probably put some
Sydney
Sweeney in that role.
Oh, Gerald, don't do it, because Jay's got takes on Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm a
Sydney Sweeney skeptic.
He's sold the stock.
All right, well, Google Sydney Sweeney as Alabama, and you'll see her on that episode.
I think
I'm done for the rest of the episode because I'm about to Google Sydney Sweeney. Alabama.
I actually kind of, I was thinking about that as you were talking about that, Gerald. I think that would be the person you cast. I don't know who you would cast as Slater.
You don't want to say Glenn Powell because of anybody but you, or anyone but you.
I mean, maybe that might not have been the bad choice there, because
but no, it can't be somebody. But it can't be some innately charismatic as Glenn Powell.
It
has to be somebody with a little bit of this like
kind of a nerd.
I don't know about
Sarah or somebody
energy.
Yeah, a guy that's
Can you imagine Michael Cera and Sydney Sweeney and True Romance?
Somebody
like
that's
Lucas Hedges.
Ooh, yeah, sure. That wouldn't be bad. Like, yeah, somebody that's like lost a job or two, and you believe it. You know what I mean? Like that they've got a bill or two due that they're behind on, right?
You know what's crazy about that? Because you just compared him to Glenn Powell.
No, I was just thinking about like
no, I was saying recasting it.
No, I know, but Glenn Powell is sort of. I understand why you would go to Glenn Powell first, but the thing about Glenn Powell is he's what, 36 or something?
I guess so. Yeah.
Wow, is he?
Yeah.
When this movie was made, Christian Slater was. I want to see, because this to me is one of the great phenomenons of modern movie stars.
I love Jay doing math right live on the show. This is
good.
Christian Slater. Oh my God, Christian Slater would have been like 23 when this movie was filmed.
No shit.
We don't have anybody. We don't have anybody like that anymore.
No, we don't have. I mean,
Will Smith was 26 in Independence.
I guess you're casting like what, Gabriel LaBelle? You know what I mean? Like,
that's the age.
That's the age. Yeah.
I don't. I'm
not saying that. You know, but
I just don't. I don't understand why people between the ages of 20 and 30 don't. Whether it's we don't have the supply, or it's just that I really don't know what it is. But people become movie stars now when they're like 33.
Okay, but like
except for Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say like Chalamet is clearly the guy.
He's the one.
Yeah, no, he is
the one of that age bracket for sure. I could see True Romance with like Sydney Sweeney and like Barry Keoghan, maybe. Kind of.
I could see that. That would be good.
Offbeat creep, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe he's.
Keoghan's got kind of that sinister thing that it makes the Slater. He's got that weird. He's on that bleeding edge of like, this guy's a little off, but also super charming. I think it's a great performance from Slater.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the thing is that we're in such an interesting transition of that, right, Jay? I mean, like, you have, I mean, like, I guess, like, you know, I was thinking, like, I'm just trying to think of guys that you're right, because the movie, a big studio movie that's like, this would be what, a $25 $30-40 million movie nowadays?
No, this was actually cheap. It was only 12.
Okay, so but like, yeah, I'm talking about like today. You would have to make this at what, like?
Oh
probably
yeah. If you're making a movie like this, call it 30.
Let's call it 30. Let's round up to that. And yeah, let's say yeah, it really does for a movie that's only $12.5 million. You can feel the money on the screen. So let's say you do cast, I guess, a Sydney Sweeney in the remake Alabama role. You're absolutely right, Jay. It's a barren wasteland of
young movie stars,
like the
young male movie stars.
Well, not even. I would just say female movie stars too. Young female movie stars. Like, it's the biggest female movie star, I guess, is Zendaya. And
I guess that's true, which is bizarre because she's only led one major movie. Yeah,
but so who's the counter to her?
Challengers.
But like who's the other person that could challenge her for that throne? Seriously,
it's Chalamet.
No, I'm talking about a female actress that could.
Oh, a female?
Like who? Like the idea of. I know that this is
Ryan, you want to know what the answer to that is?
Is it Sydney Sweeney?
No.
No. Who is it?
No.
Who is it?
It's Taylor Swift.
I was
going to say Melissa Barrera.
What movie has she not?
It doesn't matter.
Take the concert movie out.
If she came out with a movie now,
but she's 30. But she's 30-something years old. She
is a good.
What about Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera? I think
probably Jenna Ortega. Yeah, too. I mean, she's
Jenna Ortega is actually probably
that's a better answer. And I totally disagree with you on Taylor Swift. Not just because I don't like her music.
If Taylor Swift was the star of a movie.
It wouldn't matter if she was the star of the movie. Because she was one of the marquee names for Cats. That bombed. She was part of the she's been in ensemble works before.
She was a part.
The only movie that has made money for Taylor Swift, the only real movie that in the last 10 years that's made money for her is her concert movie. That's all you have to go off there for your analytics.
I'm not doing a Taylor Swift thing again.
I'm just telling you the truth. It's that you can't name another movie that she has carried to the number one at the box office.
She is one of the 10 most famous people on.
That doesn't mean that she's an actress.
No, it doesn't. But I think she could. I don't think she was the center of the movie would make.
Well, tell her to go work with David O. Russell again. I'm sure that will work out for her.
David O. Russell's killing
it. He's making that. What is he? He's making the Linda Ronstadt biopic. With Selena Gomez.
Is that what he's doing these days?
Yeah, that's what they have him scheduled for.
How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that it's Slater making this at 23. And he had a steady run of movies before this, mind you.
23 is just so young. Who gets famous at 23 now as an actor? It just doesn't happen.
And it was like
Chalamet is the answer to this. I mean,
he's the only one. So he was Christian Slater and
Leonardo DiCaprio.
And, I mean, how old is Jacob Elordi? Elordi's
he's mid-20s, in his right? mid 20s, 26, 27.
So he would be the other one, maybe.
He is 26 years old. So that means it means last year when he was doing Persona, he was 24.
He hasn't had a role as meaty as True Romance.
No.
I mean,
Euphoria was
the only movie that he's starred in is The Kissing Booth, right?
Well, yeah, now that, and then he had Saltburn and Priscilla last year.
Secondary in Saltburn, and he's secondary in Priscilla.
I wouldn't say he's secondary. He is like
supporting.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But he's the attention.
He got a nomination for that. He gets supporting. Slater is a lead in True Romance.
Would he get lead? I guess he would get supporting in Priscilla too, as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, he's also I mean, that's the difference though between back then as is now. Is television has such a big dominance, in the beginning and launching of your career. Like look at somebody like Jeremy Allen White. He's going to play Bruce Springsteen. He was in the Iron Claw. But he's most known for being on, Shameless.
Shameless, yeah.
And now he's the Bear. Like in The Bear.
The
Bear. You know what I mean? Like he's that's what he's known for most people. Like when they were asking him questions.
I can't wait. The Bear's going to start soon.
Yeah, it's a good
I'm
show.
Excited.
Gerald, did you watch The Bear?
Yeah, I haven't seen the new season though, but I watched the original season.
You like it?
Season 2 is.
I did. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about True Romance before we get out of here, Gerald?
I think we nailed it, dudes. I love this thing. I mean, I think this is my favorite Tony Scott movie. I really, really do. Yeah. I think it's a neck and neck battle between this and Man on Fire for me. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about the star power of Christian Slater at a young age, but just looking at the IMDb for this and the actors that were in this, it's just like you feel like you're being punked, like you don't think it's real. I mean, it's just so many people left and right. Christopher Walken, Dennis Hopper, Brad Pitt, Tom Sizemore we talked about, Gary Oldman. I mean, it's all over the place. I think that it is definitely. I'll ask you all's opinion on this, but I think it's definitely, in my opinion at least, could easily be called a cult classic at this point. I think that's what this is, especially.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I got a question for you. Oh, here's the question I got.
Yeah,
rank it in the Quentin Tarantino oeuvre.
It'd be mid tier.
Where does it rank in the greater Quentin Tarantino?
Do I have to consider Natural Born Killers as well?
Sure. I mean, sure. It's not as attached to him as
the screenplays that he's written, basically.
Yeah, and the movies that he's directed. Yeah.
All right. See, Jay's making me pull out the letterbox rankings that I have.
I think I'd put it like probably in the square in the middle of his.
I was gonna say, Gerald, you go ahead.
I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of the dialogue in True Romance is really advanced. I really do. I feel like he was kind of testing the limits early in his career. I got to be honest. I think from a written perspective, this might be like top 5 Tarantino screenplays.
Wow.
This might be number 6.
Okay.
I've got Kill Bill, which is one movie.
You're doing one Kill Bill?
Yeah, it's the whole bloody affair. It's not his fault.
I mean, and Glorious Bastards for sure.
Glorious Bastards is their Hollywood. I love Hollywood. Hollywood's a masterpiece,
especially written wise.
Yeah. Jackie Brown and Pulp Fiction. I have all those 5 ahead of it, and then I would put this above like Hateful Eight and Django.
Reservoir Dogs
and Death Proof and Natural Born Killers. So 6. That's where I would put it.
And From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, I don't Ryan, consider that a real thing because
we're podcasting too much because I think I am basically going to say exactly what you said.
Okay,
I think I'd have it at 6.
I think that's a good spot for it.
Quentin Tarantino is very good.
I mean, that's ahead of 2.
Yeah,
that's ahead of at least.
I'm looking at his thing here on the letterbox right now, which might be missing a couple. I don't see Natural Born Killers on here, but
he wrote that one.
He doesn't have a screenplay credit for Natural Born
Killers. That's
why.
But
it is heavily.
I think True Romance, and I'm talking about screenplay, so I'm not trying to like. I'm not trying to think about like. The visual making of the movie, but it's probably like 4th for me.
That's good. Like, what would you have ahead of it?
I would have Inglourious Basterds, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and if you're doing Kill Bill as like a
Kill Bill's 1,
and then True Romance.
Okay,
that's for me.
Yeah. No, that's good.
I like it.
Yeah.
One day we're gonna have to do it.
One day, I'm glad you came around on it.
Well, I'm telling you, I had high expectations. Sometimes I got to watch it twice in order to really, really get into it because I have my own expectations. I think that's okay. Also, too, for it to not hit on the first go. And I think Jay was like, watch it again. I was like, okay, I'll give it one more shot because, like, again, I
did that with To Live and Die in LA. I had a similar experience.
Well, when I did that a couple of years ago when we saw Matrix Resurrections, I was in the theater and I was so hyped because I loved the original 3, and then I watched it in the theater. And I was like, I don't know. And then I watched it like the week it came out, and I was like, oh, okay, now it clicks. I don't know where my head was at that day. So I think it happens sometimes. And, I'm just a human, guys. That's all I can tell you. Jay.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed in a segment we like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. Now, Gerald, this is where we because Jay is our he's our Oscar expert around here. He's the guy when you want to go to talk about awards. You don't go to me. You don't go to Eric. You don't go to anybody on this side. You go to Jay. You know what I mean? He's got the pulse.
I'm the guru
of the nation here.
Sounds right.
So we like to test his knowledge here to see if the movies that we've talked about on series have been Oscar nominated or not, and where Mr. Guru would have put True Romance in to that Oscar season. So, Jay, I'm gonna just kick it over to you. Was True Romance? I can't speak today. Is True Romance an Oscar nominated film?
I'm going to say no because of the kind of tepid reception it had at the box office. So I'm just going to say no.
That's correct. It was not. It didn't really get
actually a good year for movies. Man.
It's a really good year for movies. 94 is or 93, I guess. Yeah. 90s had good movies. I'm just going to point that out there. 90s really good run. Yeah, this was nominated for a couple Saturn Awards. It was nominated at like the MTV Movie Awards, Jay's favorite award show. Best Kiss. Would you guys like to know what the Best Kiss? I mean, obviously
the phone booth, right?
Yeah.
That shot of him standing on the phone book is incredible.
Best Kiss was Slater and Arquette. Do you want to know the other nominees?
Sure.
So the other nominees were Dana Carvey and Kim Basinger for Wayne's World 2.
Obviously.
Ethan Hawke and Winona Ryder for Reality Bites.
Okay, bam, nailed it.
The winner was Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson for Indecent Proposal. But the other nominee, which is this feels like a Jay nominee.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like in the spirit, this is why this is Jay's favorite award show. And they need to bring it back.
Is it Hocus Pocus?
Jason James Ritter and Keeliko as Willie for Free Willy.
Oh,
the kiss between the kid
that should have been number
Free
one.
Willy. That should have won, baby.
You know that story of Michael Jackson did a song for that movie because they were like, "You love whales."
Will you be there? Yeah.
Wait, Michael Jackson did a song for a kids movie? Shocker.
Oh my God. Right.
What? What?
Should we do a Diddy retrospective as well?
No, we should not. Just hey, loves the kids. Where would you guys have nominated True Romance? Would you guys have nominated True Romance at the Oscars? Is there like a category you guys would have?
For a bunch. I mean, I'm looking at my favorite movies of that year. It would be in my top 5 of the year. I would give it screenplay. I would give it director. I'd give it cinematography. I would give it editing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So screenplay was the screenplay nominees were The Piano, Dave, In the Line of Fire, Philadelphia, and Sleepless in Seattle. Good movie. Good movies.
I'll put it in there. No, that's a good crop, but I'll put it in there. I would give Arquette an actress nom probably. Wow. I would probably.
Would you nominate
supporting? I might throw Walken in there.
Walken?
Yeah.
Not Oldman?
No, you know what? You're right. Oldman and maybe Walken. How about both?
This is a stacked supporting actor lineup. This is the Tommy Lee Jones for The Fugitive, Leonardo DiCaprio for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Ralph Fiennes for Schindler's List, John Malkovich in The Line of Fire, and Pete Fosselway for In the Name of the Father. This is
pretty good.
That is
Isn't it crazy? Tommy Lee Jones winning for The Fugitive is one of the most interesting actor.
It's a
wins.
I love that movie, but no.
I'm good for The Fugitive getting whatever.
I mean, The Fugitive is a masterpiece. That is the one of the most. That's a perfect movie.
I watched that again recently. Movie. It is just like when you're watching it, you're like, what else would I want to be doing right now? There's nothing.
Gerald, have you shown your son the Fugitive?
Yep. We saw The Fugitive last year. He loved it. It holds up. I mean, he's 10. It
does.
That is the perfect. I'm going to watch a movie on AMC
That's the TNT movie of all time.
Exactly. It's the biggest TNT movie of all time. This was the year of Schindler's List, by the way. The Fugitive, In the Name of the Father, The Piano, and The Remains of the Day were the Best Picture nominees. And Spielberg, Jim Sheridan for In the Name of the Father, Jane Campion for The Piano, James Ivory for The Remains of the Days, and Jay's guy, my guy, but for Jay's movie in particular, Robert Altman for Shortcuts was nominated for Best Director.
That is my movie.
Yeah, that is your movie, buddy. I would nominate Oldman, but Walken is an inspired choice. And
so good.
Yeah, I probably.
And it is just fascinating.
Arquette over
Tarantino was definitely inspired by this movie to make some of his most interesting casting choices ever. Right? Is Walken in Pulp Fiction if he's not in
with the watch? You know,
up his ass.
You know, 2 mice and a bucket of cream. Yeah, no, he's got. Yeah, I mean, you have like Sam Jackson. You have Walken, you have Pitt, you know, that work with him. You know, I think Slater on the list for one of the characters for
I think he missed out on Reservoir Dogs and then might have gotten this, maybe.
I thought he was like the Tim Roth character maybe on the paper for Pulp Fiction.
That wouldn't have been as good.
No, it wouldn't have been, but it was just the
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. It was, you know, it's like they wanted Michael Madsen, but they got Travolta.
Patricia Arquette would have been perfect in Tarantino.
Can you guys believe that Pulp Fiction, by the way, is 30 years old now?
It's crazy.
Makes you feel old, right, Gerald?
It really does. As we're sitting here recording this, our 1994 movie draft, which is the very first movie draft for Two Piece, came out, and I took Pulp Fiction first.
You got to.
Yeah, you have to. So
I remember a couple years.
Movie of '94.
Yes, it's the best movie of '94. I know you'll say Ed Wood.
Hold on.
You'll say
I do love it. I do love it. I don't know that I would say it's better. Oh, Chungking Express though.
Chungking Express, Speed. I love Speed. Yeah,
good ones that year. It's a good year.
Shawshank, Quiz Show. I'm a big fan of Quiz Show.
How's it going?
Lion King, really getting played in this house right now. Lion King.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
The OG.
Is Leo and Stitch like out and Lion King in?
Well, we've gone through some cycles. We've gone from Lilo and Stitch was the number one. Then, interestingly, Hercules was a big player.
Hercules seems about right. I was obsessed with that when I was a kid.
And then Lion King is currently the number one. Anytime they do the Circle of Life song and then the Sabina. And then
that's the same thing.
And I love that. It's very cute.
Yeah, of course.
Kids. Well, Jay does that too. He just doesn't want to admit it on the camera.
But I do it with like a Gary Oldman in affectation.
Gerald.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on this show. We've kept him on long enough, and you can already tell Gerald's like, "All right, guys, you got to wrap it up. You got to get out of here. We got to move on." Gerald, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Absolutely. When's this airing, by the way?
Well, we're not going to tell the listeners that because this is no, I'm just kidding. We're airing right now.
Be listening to it.
Yeah, well, Gerald knows that we're recording in the past, and this is releasing in the future. We're keeping all this in because that's just what we do. This is in June. We're in June right now.
Okay. Because I was going to pump up a live stream for The Cure, but that'll probably be over when this airs. So hopefully everybody knows about that. But in terms of Two Ps, Two Ps on a podcast. It's me and my buddy Nick, and we talk about the latest movies. Sometimes we dive into older picks, and we do our retro reviews as well. And occasional top 5 list on the YouTube channel and all trailer reactions, all kinds of stuff. Jay will tell you. He's one of my biggest fans. But you can find us on the podcast and all the extra content on YouTube is probably the easiest way. It's just YouTube /2Ps on a pod. And that's TWO spelled out. And hopefully people look us up. But I really appreciate you having me here to talk about this movie that I love, man.
Gerald just saying that Jay is a fan of the show, and that's a lie because I'm also a fan of the show and big
Well, I mean, you
supporter of
both
it.
are, but you know,
just only talk about Jay.
I was a Golden Peas presenter.
I know. I'm gonna
go
wait
next year.
I gotta go wait by the mailbox. It's still,
That's
the DM's
I sent it. I mean, I don't know. I was like, why is Ryan ghosting me? I don't know what's going on.
I put on a suit and sunglasses.
Did you really? Did you really put on a suit?
Yeah, he did it big.
A jacket and sunglasses and
presented Mr. Guy over here can never.
Cillian Murphy got his award via J. Ledbetter, Golden P.
Really? Was that for Best Actor?
It was Best Male Performance.
Best Male Performance. Okay. All right. Oh, okay.
Because I mix supporting and lead. And
okay. So you consolidate things down. Okay. I see.
There you go.
Who won Female Performance of the Year?
Female was Lily Gladstone. Killers of Flower.
That's the correct answer. See, I like the P's much better than what happened at the Oscars.
Was Emma Sashik was the presenter for Best Female.
There you go.
Past and future guest.
She was on our Priscilla episode, Emma.
There you go.
She roasted the hell out of Jay.
She did.
Jay.
Yes.
Where can we find you and all your work, buddy?
Yeah. Letterboxd, J Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter. Any writing I may be doing, find on AwardsWatch. How about a movie recommendation of the week? Really enjoyed the film Snack Shack. Liked that one. It's got
the new one, right?
Yeah, new this year.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Gabriel LaBelle is in it. It's a
Mr. Fableman?
Extraordinarily pleasant summer flick that I had a very good time with, and reminded me of those great days in my life when I had a crush on a girl and was too scared to say anything. Just the best times.
Am I supposed to give a movie recommendation too? Because I just saw one on Netflix.
You can,
if you want to, throw it out there.
This is on Netflix, and it's like 8 years old. So you guys are probably going to be like, yeah, we talked about that 8 years ago. But I just saw it. It's called The Fundamentals of Caring with Paul Rudd. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's the Rudd movie. Yeah,
the road trip movie where he takes the guy the kid with muscular dystrophy.
Selena Gomez is in that one?
Selena Gomez is in it. She's extremely hot in it. Yes. But yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, it's very touching, very funny, and Paul Rudd is at the height of his charm. So The Fundamentals of Caring, if you're into it. It's a quick 90 minutes, which I know Ryan will appreciate.
Well, I'm waiting for the 3-hour cut, unfortunately. Then I will fundamentally care about it at that point. There it is. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find out my work at awardswatch.com. iTunes and Spotify 5-star reviews. We greatly appreciate it. This podcast, if you like it, you can also listen to the main show that we do that releases every Monday, because this releases every Thursday. Website, sign up for the newsletter. That's the best place to get all of our news, reviews, interviews, podcasts all in one place, sent to you twice a week. Movie recommendation for me. Actually, I'm not doing a movie recommendation this week. I'm gonna do a television series.
You going to TV?
I'm going to TV, baby.
All right.
It's about time. Everyone else is talking about it, and I had to catch up. Jay, I don't get around to a lot of television. All right.
No, I don't get around to a lot.
I don't get around to a lot.
You get around to some television.
Some, but not a lot. There are people on our website. Shout out our amazing TV editor, Tyler Doster. He watches all the TV. I don't know how he does it, but I watched a show that I think Gerald has probably seen. Probably Jay hasn't checked out, but I know he will. I watched that old X-Men 97.
I haven't seen it yet. Everybody, including you now, has told me to watch it. But
I gotta tell you guys, it's probably the best thing Marvel's done in a long, long time.
Are those
probably the
best thing are those 30-minute eps?
They are 30-minute eps.
Yeah, we need to check that
out.
Love
a 30-minute.
Love a 30-minute ep. I am a 30-minute. See, Gerald,
watch that.
Gerald, I like long movies, but I like short television shows. Like just give me in and out of a TV show and do it concisely.
That's what The Bear was. That's what really hooked me into The Bear. Was that they were 30.
It was also quick.
But then the second season, those puppies got a little.
Some
long.
of them got long, but their best episode was their longest one. So.
Yeah, is that the family one?
Yeah,
that's a good episode. Yeah. It's not really a comedy, is it?
I think it's very funny, but calling it a comedy is probably a stretch.
Thank you. X-Men 97, a lot of fun. Don't really need to know much more than the basics, I guess, of the X-Men, or you can just go on YouTube and watch like a catch-up video like I did.
It's got Wolverine in it?
Yeah, it's got Wolverine, it's got Cyclops, it's got Jean Grey, it's got the
Professor
Storm.
X in it?
Well, I can't spoil everything for you. You need to go and watch it. But yeah, I think that this might actually be the route.
The guy that throws the cards?
Gambit.
Gambit.
He's in it. Yeah, you'll like him. He's got that
down on the bayou.
He's got that accent throughout the whole thing. You'll love it, Jay. But I think that this might be the way Marvel needs to go. Get rid of the movies. Stop doing all those, because the show itself is really well written, highly engrossing, really interesting in terms of just like, again, continuing kind of the X-Men lore of the comics and talking about mutants' place in the world and how that kind of relates to politics and everything, within our modern world. Found it to be really fascinating. And so I highly recommend it. I've got 2 more episodes still to watch. I'm 8 through, and I cannot wait to go and watch those 2 other episodes. So I highly recommend that. Probably by now everybody's seen it, but just, hey, I'm late to the game on television. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, go and watch it. It is on the Disney Plus. And so there you go. Well, that'll do it for this week's Direct Watch. We will be back next week. We're going on the high tides next week. We're going to the underwater.
Under the sea.
Under the sea. We're not talking about Little Mermaid. We're talking about Crimson Tide, a big one,
Crimson Tide,
which will put us firmly in the middle of our Tony Scott movie series.
Wow. Already halfway through almost.
Already halfway. Been a lot of fun. Gerald, once again, thank you so much for
Gerald. Thanks, man.
Coming on, buddy.
Yeah,
and
love you guys.
Love you too, buddy. And we will see you all next time.